Hey everybody, today's lesson is going to be over how to construct your theme statement for your To Kill a Mockingbird essay. Let's go ahead and get started. Now, first things first, it may be helpful for you to go back to the paper requirements document to make sure you're selecting a topic that you can write 3 body paragraphs about. Now, just as a reminder, if we take a look at this document, your first body paragraph is going to be about symbolism. Now, remember, the whole paper is going to revolve around a theme. And remember, a theme is a statement, which is what we're working on today, not just one word. But say you want to write about isolation. So you want to be able to select a symbol of isolation within the story. Your second body paragraph is going to be about making a character connection. So again, say the topic is isolation, you would be writing about a character who's isolated throughout the story. And then this last part, the real world connection, you would talk about how the examples you gave with the character connection and the symbol connect with what we see in the real world today. And again, you're going to do this with any topic you select. Say you want to write about courage, then you would select a symbol that has something to do with courage. You would select a character that is courageous throughout the story to write about, and then you would connect it with courage we see in society today. So what you're going to want to do is first and foremost figure out what big idea you want to address in your paper, and then come back and we'll talk about the theme statement. Now, as a reminder, a theme statement is an observation about life or human nature that is supported by evidence in the work. Now, this should also be something that you can see outside of the story itself. And we're going to get more into the requirements of a theme statement, but this is the basic definition. So it's an observation about life or human nature. All right, now to write your theme statement, here are some steps. So 1, as I said, pick a major topic addressed in the story, which we'll go through in a second. Pinpoint what you think the author's view on this topic is. So if you're writing about closed-mindedness in this story, what do you think Harper Lee believes to be true about closed-mindedness? And then you're going to format that perspective using the theme statement template that we're going to go over today. All right, so let's go ahead and work on picking a topic right now. Now, remember, you were writing those active reading journals and you were keeping track of all these big ideas within the story, and I gave you a list of big ideas which we're going to look at. Select either one of those ideas, or if you saw a different concept or idea come up numerous times in the story, you can also pursue that. Now, again, let's stick with the topic of isolation. Isolation, the word, is not a theme. That's a topic. So what you're working through right now is how to take that topic and come up with what truth about humanity or human nature or about the world is the author trying to get across about isolation. Now, here's a look at some of the topics that the pre-AP teachers had come up with prior to reading the book and that you should have been journaling on. So we have courage, privilege, isolation, poverty, closed-mindedness, social norms, loss of innocence, coming of age. So what you're going to want to do is either select one of these topics or a topic that you notice comes up multiple times within the story that you can then develop a theme statement for. All right, if you have a topic in mind, I want you to start thinking about what you think Harper Lee, the author, is trying to say about this topic. So what do you think Harper Lee believes to be true about isolation? What does she believe to be true about closed-mindedness, about prejudice, about coming of age, of loss of innocence? All right, so that's the first question to ask yourself. The next question is, what perspective about the big idea does the author want us to take away? So it's very similar to the first question. So what does the author believe to be true about this topic, and what does she want readers to understand about this topic? Now, one key thing here is that, again, I mentioned this earlier, this should be something universal. It's not something that only applies to the story. So when you're writing your theme statement, we're going to go through some do's and don'ts, but you definitely don't want to say like Scout loses innocence in experiencing trauma in To Kill a Mockingbird. Well, that doesn't apply to anybody outside of the text because you mentioned Scout's name there. All right, so ask yourself these questions as you are thinking through the topic you have selected. All right, now here's what you can do. Either if you want to whip up a piece of scrap paper or open up a Google Doc, and I want you to fill in the blank. So the author believes blank about, and then talk about your topic. So what does the author believe to be true about your topic? All right, and try to go beyond like, the author believes isolation is bad. You want to come up with something thoughtful and insightful for this exercise. So if you want to pause and work through this exercise, feel free to do so. All right, now on this presentation and then also on the document you're going to be completing today, there's this thematic cheat sheet. I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about it right now because we're going to go over it when we talk through the activity that you have today. But if you want to look at this example, it can be found on the presentation. Now, I do want to go through some do's and don'ts. So don't include specific characters or plot points. Again, you don't want to say Scout loses her innocence in the story because, again, that applies only to Scout. It's not a universal truth that we can look at in other people, other characters, and other works. All right, don't be too obvious. Don't be like, the theme of the story is that racism is bad. Well, yeah, that's true, but that's not very insightful. So again, the example it gives here is war is bad is not a theme. Dig a little deeper using details from the story. What specifically is bad about war? How does it negatively impact the characters? So on and so forth. All right, don't make it advicey. So you don't, what is meant by that is you don't want to just say, you should always be there for your family. That's more of like a moral to the story / advice. That's not really a theme. So a theme, again, remember, is an observation about humanity, about the way the world works. It's not advice or a moral to the story. You don't ever want to use the pronoun you. Again, that turns into, some advice most of the time. And you don't want to use cliches. So if you look here, there's some examples. Once a cheater, always a cheater. You want to come up with your own theme statement. So I shouldn't read your theme statement and be like, you know what? I've heard this before. This should be something you're coming up with, an observation you're making. So before I let you go, let's talk about the assignment that you have today. So you're going to be completing the developing a theme statement activity today for homework. So what you want to do is the first step in developing your theme statement is deciding on the big idea like we had talked about. So it'd be helpful to list any big ideas you saw present throughout the story. Again, we gave you that list and you can find that list in the presentation. So this is where we're saying closed-mindedness, isolation, poverty. However, there's also other big ideas. Or, for example, maybe you want to write about closed-mindedness, but you specifically want to write about closed-mindedness and gender roles. So again, we see that a lot throughout the story. There's certain expectations of Scout and Jem, and maybe that's what you want to focus on. Sure, you can do that. You can make it more specific. Or maybe you specifically want to focus on racism throughout the story or loss of innocence. So here's where you're just listing any ideas you have to choose from. Now, you're going to select one of those ideas then that you want to focus on and move to step 2. So step 2 says make a quick list of 3 instances in the story where you see this idea. If you cannot think of 3 instances, choose a different idea. So if it doesn't come up at least 3 times, it's probably not a good topic to pursue. So say I'm writing about closed-mindedness in the story, I would list 3 instances where I've seen closed-mindedness in the story. All right, step 3. What do you think the author is trying to say about this idea? So this is where we ask ourselves, what message about this idea is the author trying to get across? For example, if you said a big idea featured in your story is power, what do you think the author believes to be true when it comes to power? All right, you'll put that for step 3. Again, you're not really having a polished theme statement at this point. Step 4, then, it's time to tidy up what you wrote in step 3 and turn what the author believes into an actual theme statement. So to do that, you're going to complete the thematic cheat sheet on the next page. So go ahead and scroll down. So for step 4, you're going to go to the next page, and then you're going to come back for step 5 and complete the checklist. Okay, so here's the thematic cheat sheet. And what we're going to do is we're going to follow this template for creating our theme statement. Okay, so here we go. It says thematic idea. So say the thematic idea I'm pursuing is courage. So courage, an assertion about the thematic idea. All that means is like what is being said about courage in the story. So maybe what I'm saying is that courage allows people to attempt difficult tasks in their lives. And then you want to expand upon it by adding either when, because, unless, even when, whether. Basically, these are sentence starters for you so you could then develop the idea more. So here it says, courage allows people to attempt difficult tasks in their lives, even when the possibility of failure seems high. Okay, so that would be an example of how to compose your theme statement. Now, you may remember that we completed this document when we did your summer reading project. So what you can do is I still, on this document, have linked the example I gave you with the Lion King. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up that example here so you can see it. So I listed any ideas. I walked through all the process. But what I want to show you is the example with the cheat sheet. So what I said was loyalty is power, and the largest threat to someone's power is disloyalty. So that was my assertion about the theme, is I said the biggest threat to someone's power is disloyalty. And then I developed that by adding that stems from a person or group being marginalized or overlooked. So this is what you want to be doing with your idea. You want to make a statement regarding that idea that can be then seen and observed throughout the story. Now, once you've typed your theme here, you can scroll back up to where it says step 5 and make sure you check off all of the boxes here. So like, for example, it says my statement is an observation about life or human nature that is supported by evidence in the work. It doesn't use the pronoun you, so on and so forth. So make sure you can check off everything on the checklist there. And then the last part here is that you want to make sure this theme can be found throughout the story. So it says what happens that contributes to the theme, explain the event, what characters are involved in the beginning of the story. So if I'm looking at closed-mindedness in terms of the Radleys, maybe I would track closed-mindedness at the beginning of the story, middle of the story, end of the story. If I'm taking a look at poverty and something specific about poverty throughout the story, I would look at where I see poverty in the beginning, middle, and end of the story. Again, this is just to make sure that this theme can be found throughout the story, not just in one small part of the text. Okay, and then here are some ideas often found in literature. Again, we gave you that list with the active reading journals. It was also on that presentation I went over, but this list is there if you need to access it. All right, now, if you have any questions, make sure you're letting me know. I will be having some Zoom meetings or I might be seeing you in class. So make sure if you are stuck on your theme statement or having a hard time with it, that you let me know and that you ask questions, because having a good theme statement is really important in then developing and writing your paper. All right, that's it for today. Thank you for watching.